Digesting a week's worth of newsprint now on BBC2, What the Papers Say.
This week, What the Papers Say is presented by John Sweeney of The Observer.
Hello. Death, said the late Anthony Burgess, comes along like a gas bill one can't pay. And so, farewell then, Harold Wilson, wit, pipesucker and Prime Minister, who has succumbed to the Grim Reaper's final demand. In the 24 hours after his death, respect for once was the order of the day. The Times.
Parliament pays tribute to Wilson.
The Financial Times.
Friends and former foes pay respects to Harold Wilson.
The Daily Telegraph.
Parties unite to praise Wilson.
And a quote from John Major under a charming front-page picture of our Harold.
His ever-present pipe became a symbol of tranquility in times of turmoil.
Even and oddly, the Sun.
Harold Wilson was the first ordinary bloke to inhabit 10 Downing Street. He spoke the language of the people.
English.
Like football, brown sauce and walking his dog.
Bow wow.
No doubt Harold will be having beer and sandwiches in heaven now.
When he was alive, the paper sang a different song.
The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea.
Depicting Harold not as...
The first ordinary bloke to inhabit 10 Downing Street.
but as the devil, complete with horns, bent trident, curvy tail and a diabolical pipe, stoking the fires of hell. The
Election Express.
Price 5 pence.
saw Wilson as a mask hiding the real devil of Tony Benn.
Vote Wilson for peace and quiet.
Extremism.
Today, bizarrely, the Express roots for Wilson.
He won 4 elections, a habit his successors in the Labour Party have conspicuously failed to emulate.
Back in 1970, the Daily Mail saw Harold as a marmoset-eyed Napoleon.
Labour's election hopes.
Broken promises.
With pithy commentary from...
Walter Terry.
This was a star whose performance was so entrancing and persuasive, we became transfixed and forgot to vote for him.
And here's a face of yesteryear.
Janet Street Porter.
Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Amen to that. Back in 95, the Mail is positively gooey.
Wilson, the kindly crusader.
Formidable as an opponent, loyalty itself as a friend.
And make your mind up, please. Tony Blair was just as gentle in The Independent.
A new era was dawning. Culturally, the Beatles captured that spirit. In political terms, Wilson did.
We love you, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the cartoonists really did love Harold. Blair's piece is fine, but Gerald Scarfe's pen and ink squid paints the man warts and all.
Into Europe, out of Europe. Yes, no, that way, this way.
Not that our Harold couldn't dish it out. On form, he was so much sharper than today's pygmies. Here's Harold on That Woman.
Mr. Wilson referred to Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, the Conservative Party leader, as...
Piltdown woman.
Compared with her, he declared.
A Selsdon man is a gleaming symbol of modernity.
And Harold on Tony Benn.
He was a very good Postmaster General, all those coloured stamps. Still going well. Now, I've always said about Tony that he immatures with age.
On the appointment of Sir Alec Douglas Hume as Prime Minister in '63.
After half a century of democratic advance, the process has ground to a halt with the 14th Earl.
On Hugh Scanlon, Trade Union Baron.
Get your tanks off my lawn, Hughie.
There is a surreal quality to the sober obsequies of the Sun and the others. You could call it the Robert Maxwell effect. No one in what used to be called Fleet Street likes to be rude about eminent folk, at least for a day. Let's remember, even when Maxwell died, it was...
The man who saved the mirror.
Though on the night Maxwell made his big splash, everyone in the Mirror pub, the stab in the back, sang...
We're all going bobbing along.
The Guardian's Hugo Young seemed to forget this unwritten rule and penned the harshest verdict the day after Wilson's death.
Harold Wilson was one of the men who ruined post-war Britain. He was a small, posturing, visionless politician, personally pleasant to his friends and even to his enemies, amusing and irreverent and apparently kind, but his public work was a long, strung-out disaster.
A disaster? You could say the same about Lady Thatcher without the amusing or kind bits. Young's attack was badly received by some readers.
Hugo's dance on Harold's coffin.
Blessed with hindsight, as it was, Hugo Young's attempted demolition job on Harold Wilson was one of the most unpleasant pieces of journalism I've ever read.
I was appalled by the spectacle of Hugo Young's dancing on Harold Wilson's coffin.
For all his faults, Harold Wilson was the last Prime Minister we had a good time under.
Wilson has been marked down too hard for too long. Unlike Maxwell, I suspect his stock after death will rise, not fall. In many ways, the best obituaries of Harold were printed when he was still alive. Take this 1975 Daily Mail piece by one Enoch Powell.
He did not, as one had uncharitably or ignorantly assumed, betray his principles, or abandon his beliefs under pressure or from self-interest. He just had no principles or beliefs to abandon or betray. The U-turn is Harold's normal mode of progression. It is as natural to him as it is to a crab to walk sideways.
And consider this 1976 tribute from the Evening Standard after he had announced his shock resignation.
It is hard to discern any claims to statesmanship in Mr. Wilson, but he has remained an incomparable politician and patriot to the end.
Yeah.
The singer has been remarkable, whatever we have thought of his songs.
And who was this author of this socialist apologia? Step forward.
Max Hastings.
Now editor of the Daily Torygraph. Dig that haircut, man. Max is right about Wilson being a patriot, but it should never be forgotten that the nasties were out to get Harold from early on.
Even Wilson's enemies in Westminster and the darker recesses of Whitehall, who once wrote him off as a paranoid Walter Mitty figure, now acknowledge he was the target of a group of right-wing officers in MI5 and MI6 whose activities have never been properly investigated.
Thus the Guardian on the treason against our Harold.
MI5 built up a file on him codenamed Henry Worthington.
HW, get it?
Peter Wright, the former MI5 officer and author of Spycatcher, who died last month, said he was ringleader of a conspiracy to discredit Wilson.
Now that he is dead, I predict that more unholy poison, that Wilson was some kind of Soviet agent, will seep out ere his bones are laid to rest. But the memory of the fine if flawed Yorkshireman will live on. Wilson quoted Stanley Baldwin when he resigned.
Once I leave, I leave. I'm not going to speak to the men on the bridge, and I'm not going to spit on the deck.
No spitting. Has anyone told Lady Thatcher?
Thatcher launches savage attack on Major's
Misguided.
policies.
By the way, has anyone noticed the similarity between Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister, and a Klingon warlord? I wonder if they are by any chance related. The Sunday Times has been extremely coy about what Lady Thatcher has to say in her new book, The Path to Power, but here's an exclusive snippet.
Giant green turtles wait outside the abattoir, occasionally exhaling a long, plangent sigh.
Sorry, wrong snippet. Actually, there aren't any interesting quotes in the new Thatcher book. Try this.
But I was not prepared for the speed with which the position I adopted would be reversed.
Or this.
The problem with John Major's alternative approach was that although it initially won plaudits, it left the fundamental problems unresolved.
Last night, sources close to Lady Thatcher
The Sunday Telegraph, no less.
insisted she was not making a personal attack, but was speaking in Britain's interests.
The problem for the Sunday Times is they've paid a lot of dosh for a boring book. So what you're looking at is naked marketing hype. One turns with relief to...
Out on a limb.
The Heather Mills story.
It's full of pathos.
Stunning model Heather Mills's life lay in tatters when she lost her left leg in a road accident.
Told with all the delicacy associated with a...
Sun exclusive.
I was wearing my false leg and a guy wolf whistled. It was the best sound ever. I learned to ski off-piste
That is opposed to on-piste.
and to rollerblade through the park.
The story will make you cry.
My trainer was lying 10 yards away. My left foot was still in it.
And it'll make you laugh.
Only cut along my botted line. I told her, now right, don't go past this line.
She was having a skin graft from her buttocks at the time.
All round my bum.
Now there's a gap in the market. How about our peg-leg page-free girl slagging off the Prime Minister? It would beat the path to power on John Major any day. You could call it.
All round my bum.
Perhaps not. And they're off with Sir Jerry Jungeting Wigan in the front, Seb Coe on his tail, but now coming up from behind are the hacks from the people.
Co, blimey.
Panting behind the Olympic sprinter Webb.
Rob Kellaway.
Kim Bartlett.
And Alan Qualtrough.
Crazy name, crazy guy.
What is fast-footed MP Sebco doing dashing around town with a blonde?
To help her with the gas bill?
He was spotted at a secret midnight rendezvous with friend Vanessa Lander, who had obviously
Obviously.
put out a 3-line whip for some friendly advice.
Oh yeah, mate.
It was the sort of late-night date with a single woman that sets cruel tongues wagging, but Jolly Seb was keen to keep everyone guessing and simply said...
Giant green turtles wait outside the abattoir, occasionally exhaling a long, plangent sigh.
It's that turtle again. Coe actually said,
I've got nothing to say.
enter Max Davidson of the Daily Telegraph.
Was it Coe in wig, or Wigan and Co?
Ho-hum.
Serious consideration must be given to the possibility that Sir Jerry Wigan
Conservative Western Supermare,
and Sebastian Coe
Conservative Falmouth and Camborne.
are one and the same person, Last week, while Sir Jerry
Ostensibly.
was in South Africa looking at pomegranates, Mr. Coe
Ostensibly.
was at Westminster grumbling about his name being added to amendments without his permission.
Aha!
Significantly, nobody at Westminster could remember seeing the two men in the same room.
Aha, aha.
The man who ran 800 meters faster than anyone in history was not an athlete, but an overweight politician.
Aha, aha, aha.
It is a device worthy of Ruth Rendell.
That's enough ahas, Ed.
By brilliant subterfuge and a judicious use of platform shoes, Jerry Strick Sebastian has achieved the ambition of every Tory MP, to sit for 2 seats at once and draw 2 salaries. He doesn't deserve censure, he deserves a medal.
He didn't get that much censure either.
1 minute, Sebastian stroke Jerry was eating humble pie.
Unreserved apology, no intention to deceive, behaviour at odds with the proper expectations of the House.
The next Madam Speaker was ruling that personal statements of this sort were not the subject of debate or comment.
So he's got away with it, then.
Growled Dennis Skinner like a dog deprived of its bone.
And so he got away with it. All this talk of the Nolan Committee cleaning up the House of Commons makes me wonder whether it might be a good idea for journalists, too. We could have a committee of standards on leisure journalism. It would examine the misuse of superlatives, gushing phrases, and endless padding. This from a motoring page. Where else?
Eureka! Remarkable quietness. Very talky.
Very turkey.
Very talky. Excellent. Remarkable quietness.
We've done that.
Superb. Excellent. Superb handling.
Any criticism?
A little frisky on bumpy corners.
And the verdict?
Leader of the pack.
Brum brum. It's a good job he wasn't road testing a Bentley Azure.
To be given one of the world's most desirable cars to drive for a week is a rare privilege.
Cringes Uriah Heep. Sorry, Alan Copps in the Times.
To find it spirited away in the night by thieves from a locked underground garage is mortifying.
Mortifying.
The theft was not the car's only trouble with the press. The first prototype was wrecked by a lorry while being driven by a man from the Daily Mail.
Aha! And does the Mail mention this? Oh, no, it doesn't.
King of the road, the £215,000 Bentley Azure has an ultra-sophisticated alarm system, which is sensitive to the slightest vibration.
Such as being wrecked by a lorry while being driven by a man from the Daily Mail?
Launched in March, it attracted worldwide acclaim.
One turns to the travel pages in search of straightforward reporting.
Giant green turtles wait outside the abattoir, occasionally exhaling a long, plangent sigh.
Not Lady Thatcher, not Seb Coe, but Charles Nicholl, waxing his lyre for the Mail on Sunday. The Sunday Express goes to Lanzarote.
Ireland is as good as gold.
By J. Iliff.
It sounds like a new brand of toilet duck.
Beaches bathed in yellow glow.
Come again?
Beaches bathed in yellow glow.
Now look at the accompanying photograph.
Beaches bathed in yellow glow.
Beaches bathed in volcanic black. Toilet duck, Iliff, does concede the point.
The beaches are not all black.
Meanwhile, Express diarist Ross Benson spotted a different vision of beauty.
I am indebted to Cosmopolitan magazine to learn that his hands are also things of pampered beauty.
Whose hands?
This is achieved by regular manicures at the Figaro Beauty Clinic in his North London constituency.
Oh, yeah, mate.
We're strictly a ladies' beauty salon, and we'd never done a man before.
Says manageress Maria Eliadis.
But Michael
Portillo, no less.
popped in and asked for a mini manicure. He said,
I'm used to having manicures.
so I gave him a cuticle wax.
Somehow I think we'd all feel safer in our beds if the leading Tory contender for Supreme Office was a bit more like Harold Wilson. One can imagine Harold popping into a pub and asking for a pint of bitter, but not the...
Figaro Beauty Clinic.
For...
Cuticle wax.
Good night, everyone, and good night, Harold.